Medusa?
Medusa? What does she have to do with this? Hello and welcome to the Faded Wildflower Crochet. My name is Rachel. And last weekend I was browsing at a small yarn shop looking at all their fancy yarn when I came across this fancy crochet kit, which the reason why this is a fancy crochet kit is because the yarn in this kit is actually merino wool. I personally have never made a plushie with merino wool before, so I am so excited about this. This is Ollie designed for DHG, which we will talk more about that in a minute. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get a closer look at this. Okay, so here is a look at the outside of the box. As I already mentioned, the designer of this plushie is Ollie Design, which if you are not familiar with her, she is an absolutely amazing, talented amigurumi designer. I was actually already following her on Instagram when I found this, and I have made one of her patterns before, which is an adorable lizard. I actually have him back on my shelf. I'll put a picture of him because he turned out so adorable. And I am just always eyeing so many of her patterns, wanting to purchase them. So I'm so excited to get to do another one of her designs. And it seems that she partnered with DHG to make this kit, which DHG is a small Italian brand that you can find different types of fiber. I believe you can find both hand-dyed yarn as well as like the fiber that you use to spin yarn, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so here is what the side of the packaging looks like. That gives you all of the information about what is included in this kit, which it does tell you it comes with whatever this type of yarn. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, but it comes with that type of yarn, which as I mentioned is a merino wool yarn. It does come with safety eyes, hypoallergenic wadding, which I believe that just means stuffing. And it also comes with the same type of yarn to embroider the mouth. Okay, so now this part does say extra materials. And I think from looking at the website, these are the things that are not included in this kit. So these are the things that are included, and these are the extra things that you will need from your own stash. I was a little bit confused when I was looking at this in the store, and my eyes glossed over and I thought, oh, it comes with everything that you need. That's awesome. But then looking at the website, like I said, I don't think it actually includes a hook or a needle or stitch markers or any of those things. I don't think that they're being purposely deceptive on their packaging. I want to say it's probably just something that got lost in translation just because this is an Italian brand. But let me know what you think. Would you read that and automatically think that these are the extra things that you would need from your stash? Or would you think that these were materials that were also included? So here is what the back of the packaging looks like. It does show you some different options for kits that they have. This was actually the only one that they had in the store where I was at. So without further ado, let's go ahead and open this bad boy up. Okay, so here is everything that our kit comes with, which I was correct. This does not include a crochet hook or a needle or anything like that, which I have to say, for me personally, I don't really mind. If you have seen me try out kits in the past, you will know most of the time I don't really like the hook that they give or the needle. I usually end up using my own hook anyway. So for me personally, that doesn't bother me. Now, I do have to say right off the bat that this kit was not cheap. This kit did cost $38, which, you know, for not including a crochet hook or a needle or anything like that, you know, when you think $38 and you get 2 skeins of yarn and some stuffing, some safety eyes, and a little bit to embroider the mouth, you might think, that price is definitely not worth it. Now, of course, I am trying this out today to see if, in fact, that $38 is worth it. But I didn't mind paying that just because I was supporting a small yarn business, and you're supporting DHG, which is a small dyeing business, and you're supporting Ollie Design, which is a small designer. So I do have to say that, you know, $38 was a little bit of a sticker shock, but when you think about supporting small businesses, it makes that price a little bit more palatable. So I have to say, before we even get started, that this yarn is definitely different than I thought it was going to be. So on the packaging on the outside, it does say extra fine merino wool. Now, maybe I am just such a newbie to the fancy yarn world, but I thought extra fine meant thin. And this is not exactly a super thin yarn. I don't know what exactly you would qualify this in terms of like a 1, a 2, or 3, but I wouldn't say that this is as thin as I expected it to be. And I also did not expect this to basically be like a roving yarn. Again, I'm not exactly sure what the exact definition of roving is, but this is just like one little bundle of fiber. There aren't separate strands. And as you can see, like right here, that does mean that the edges are very interesting looking. I'm pretty nervous about that. I haven't had the best luck with working with this type of yarn, particularly for amigurumi. But yeah, we will have to just see as we go along. Maybe it will end up surprising me. But this did also come with a ton of stuffing. This is a lot of stuffing, which is great. Got our safety eyes here. And like I said, a little bit of this yarn here to embroider the mouth, which again, you can see is interesting. It's interesting. I'm not going to give my judgments yet, but we are just going to go ahead and get comfy and cozy on the couch and get started on this cute little jellyfish. So if you've been keeping up with me, you will know that I had a zit on the bottom of my chin that was taking forever to heal. Well, it finally healed. And then I got one over here that's been absolutely killing me the past couple days. And I just noticed when I turn the camera on that I'm getting one right here. And of course, this happens on a week where my kids are with their grandparents. And so I have this whole week free to be able to film all that I need to. And of course, I'm going to have to film with zits on my chin. The last time I talked about my acne problems in a video, you guys were really helpful. So feel free to leave all of your advice. But I was doing so well for a while. My skin was clear. I wasn't having these terrible, painful hormonal acne, but they're back at it. So I don't really know what else to do. So it is first impressions time. And I have to say that I think what I'm dealing with right now is that my expectations were way up here. And, you know, the reality is about here. It's not on the floor. It's not terrible, but it's just not where I wanted it to be. I wanted the expectation and the reality to be equal, but in fact, they're not. So this yarn is not as bad to work with as I thought it was going to be, which I know is just like absolutely glowing praise, but it is reminding me the most, if I were to compare it to a yarn that I have tried, it reminds me the most of the Facets yarn from Michaels. And if you know, if you watched the video where I reviewed that, I just did not enjoy that for amigurumi. I liked it paired with another yarn, but I don't like it that much on its own. It snags. And this yarn does as well. It snags quite a bit. Not quite as much as that one, but it does snag. When I heard that this kit was coming with merino wool, my mind went straight to the merino wool that I tried in the video where I tried your favorite yarns. And if you watch that video, you will know that I absolutely loved that yarn. It was so easy and so nice to work with. So that was my expectation going in. And then the reality of it being more like the Facets yarn that I've tried in the past is it's tripping me up a little bit, I have to admit. Now, when it comes to the pros of this yarn, I mean, first of all, the color is gorgeous. And second of all, the stitch definition, it looks good. It's just not easy to work with. So I just don't really understand the thought process of using this type of yarn in a kit where you knew people were going to be making amigurumi. And with making amigurumi and pulling your stitches tight, this type of yarn just wants to snag, as you can probably see like right there. It snagged on me and I don't know. Like I said, it's not quite as bad as I thought. And once I get into like a good flow with it, it's okay. But then if I have to like put it down for a second to start recording or whatever, then sometimes I'll get off a little bit. And what this type of yarn does for me is my hook just wants to go right in between it, just like that. Now, when it comes to the instructions, they are pretty bare bones. They are just on this one little sheet of paper. There's no photos. There's no link to a pattern where you can get more photos or information. But I will say that it's written in a way that's really easy to understand besides one thing. So let me just read you one of these lines. For example, it says increase in the next S, which S stands for stitch, and then single crochet in the next 2 SS. And so I'm assuming that SS means stitches. I'm assuming S means stitch and SS means stitches, but that's not in the abbreviation guide. And when I see SS, I think slip stitch. And so I was really confused for a minute there, but I think that it just means to, do however many single crochet in the next however many stitches. I don't know if I've ever seen SS as an abbreviation for stitches. Have you? I don't know. Other than that, pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. And this is definitely turning out a lot bigger than I expected. This isn't even as big as it's going to get. We still have a few more increases. So it's going to be a big boy jellyfish. I think I'm going to have to go take my makeup off and do some acne treatment. So forgive me if you see zit cream on my face. I'm doing my best out here. Okay, you guys, it is the next day. I did dye my hair last night, which makes me feel a little bit better about myself. My chin is still zit city though, but your girl's got a lot of makeup on, covering it up. Don't worry, I will take it off later and do another zit treatment. Those seem to be working. The benzoyl peroxide, I know a lot of people recommended that the last time I talked about acne, and I do think that that helps a lot. But anyway, this is how far I got on my little jellyfish friend. Jellyfish friend. That was hard to say. But I have the entire head done, which its head is pretty large. It's much bigger than I expected it to be. And I will say that the longer that I worked with this yarn, the more I grew to like it. Now, it did still snag for me here and there, but I will say, as I kind of mentioned yesterday, once you get in a little bit of a flow with it, you get your rhythm down, it's not so bad. I think my issue is that I am filming this process, and so I have to stop and move the camera and turn it on, turn it off, and all of the things that kind of disrupts the flow a little bit. But in the moments where I'm in between and I'm not having to worry about the camera, I do like this yarn better than I did yesterday. Although, will this become a favorite yarn for amigurumi? Absolutely not. Now, the next thing I have to talk about is this stuffing. I tried to show this a little bit, which first of all, there is so much of this stuffing left. Look how much is left, and we don't have any more stuffing left on this project. And also, this is all of the regular blue yarn that we need, and this is how much I have left of it, which is awesome. But let me just show you this stuffing. First of all, look at how I'm trying to pull this apart, and it's so stiff. I know on the ingredients list, the supply list, it did say that this was hypoallergenic. I don't know if that has something to do with it, but I just typically use a polyfill stuffing, the Polyfill brand stuffing. And I've talked about before that I don't like really, really soft stuffing, but this is on the other end of it. Polyfill stuffing is right in between. It's not too soft. It has a little bit of grit to it though, but this is all grit. I don't know. It is so stiff. Once I have it broken up like this, it's a little bit, that's really what you have to do. You have to break it up and really, and I don't know if you can tell on camera, how much this is falling apart everywhere. There's little dusties everywhere, which polyfill stuffing does do that a little bit, but this is excessive. And it's just really, really, really hard to pack in there. And I don't know if you can tell that this is super, super stiff. It's dense almost. And I had to put that much in there to help this have its shape. but can you see that? And now I don't know if this is the yarn or the stuffing's fault, but you can really tell where those decreases were. If I were to do this pattern again, especially in this type of yarn, I would definitely stagger those decreases just to make it where there's not like this very noticeable line. Again, I'm not sure. It might be the yarn, but it could also be because of the stuffing like being hard to get in there to make the shape how I want it to be, if that makes any sense. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that. Last night I was thinking about this kit and how at the end of kit videos, I always talk about different aspects of the kit and give it ratings and all of that. And I was thinking about how quality of supplies is one of the first things that I judge. And the thing is, the quality of the supplies in this, like it's good quality. This is merino wool, and I can tell that this type of stuffing is a good type of stuffing. I just don't think that either one of them are meant for amigurumi. I think that this stuffing would be much better suited to something like a pillow where you really, really want it to keep that shape, or if you want a pillow that's got that like firmness to it. For a plushie, you kind of want it to be a little bit softer, a little bit more squishy, but like, again, I don't know if you can tell like just how stiff this stuffing made this thing. I just don't think it's the most appropriate thing for a plushie. And I've already talked about how I just don't think that this yarn is an appropriate yarn for a plushie. You know, it does feel soft. I will give it that. It does feel nice to the touch, but as far as working with it, I don't know. So those are my thoughts so far. Now, as far as the instructions go, it continues to be pretty simple, pretty easy to follow. But something that I noticed looking ahead in the pattern is it says, put the Medusa's head face down. And I was like, Medusa? What does she have to do with this? But apparently the Italian word for jellyfish is Medusa. So the more you know, which I feel like we should start calling them Medusas. In English, we call them a jellyfish, which makes them sound all cute and like sweet, like you want to play with them. Jellyfish are not sweet. You do not want to play with a jellyfish. They will sting you. And so I feel like Medusa is a much more fitting name. So petition to start calling them Medusas in English. What do you think? Anyway, I am going to go ahead and pull out this yarn, which I am so excited to work with this. It is so pretty. For the rest of this, make all the tentacles and sew it all together. And then this little jellyfish will be done. I don't know. I will save the rest of my thoughts for later, but I've got mixed thoughts so far. I will say that. Okay, so I finished this little round of, they call them the small tentacles. So cute, first of all. But second of all, the instructions say to cut and block the thread. And I wonder if this is just another thing that's getting lost in translation, because when I think of blocking, I think of when you get usually a garment wet and then you stretch it to the size you want and let it dry. That's blocking in my mind. So I don't really know what they mean by blocking. I think maybe they just mean weave in the ends. Maybe this is, again, something that is like not translating over from Italian. Does anyone in the comments speak Italian and can tell me what they meant by this? Because I'm a little bit confused, but I'm just going to weave in the ends because I think that's what they mean, but I don't know for sure. Another thing, looking at the next section of directions, when I'm making the medium-sized tentacles, it says the tentacles will most certainly curl up as the work evolves, which definitely reminds me of that AI. If you watched my video where I reviewed that AI book, which it seems like they just stole a pattern and then ran it through an AI to like change the wording. That's kind of what this is reminding me of. Although, you know, I don't think that this was like malicious in the way that that book was. Obviously, they had permission to use this pattern, but I do think that they just like ran the translation through an AI and didn't really check with somebody who speaks English to make sure that it made sense. I don't know, which doesn't really make sense because I know that this designer has patterns both in Italian and in English, and I have used one of her English patterns and didn't have any problems at all. So I don't really know what's going on here, but not a huge deal. We can figure out what's going on, but on to working on tentacles for basically the rest of the day. How many do I have to make? Continue until you have 6 tentacles. So 6 medium tentacles and 3 long tentacles. So we have 9 tentacles to make, and then the little bubbles that are on the top of the head here. And then I have to decide if I want to give this a smile. I know that the pattern calls for a smile, but I kind of like the way that it looks with no smile. Tell me what you guys think. I wish you were here in real time to give me some advice, but I like the way it looks without it. I might leave it off. Hope nobody gets mad at me for that. That would be a really weird thing to get mad at me for, but people have gotten mad at me for less, that's for sure. Anyway, on to tentacle making. I don't have a whole lot more to say about this kit, but I was getting ready to have a snack of these Oreos. The other day, me and my daughters went to the store and each picked out like a weird flavor, weird-ish flavor of Oreos. And I picked the tiramisu ones because, I mean, I love a good tiramisu. But these things smell like a Bath and Body Works candle. I can't put my finger on which one, but it just has that general Bath and Body Works candle smell. So if you ever get an intrusive thought that you want to take a bite of a candle, just get one of these Oreos and it will satisfy that itch. Does anyone else have that intrusive thought? Just me? I don't know. Anyway, I don't know why I wanted to tell you that. I'm in a weird mood today. But anyway, I do have 3 more tentacles to crochet, and then I have to sew them all together, and I will be done with this jellyfish, or this Medusa, if you will. So I'm going to finish my candle Oreos, and then I will finish this little cutie. Okay, you guys, my cute little jellyfish is done, and I don't need names for her this time. Her name is obviously Medusa. I did end up going with no smile. I think that she's really cute without the smile, but also I really didn't want to mess with this yarn anymore after the disaster that was trying to sew on these tentacles, which we will get to in a minute, but I do think she is quite cute, despite the fact that, yeah, you can see these decreases right here. But that's okay. I still think she's quite adorable, and she feels quite soft as well, which is definitely a bonus. As per usual, I'm going to talk about some different aspects of this kit and say whether I give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a sideways thumb. I really wish that I didn't have to have this here because it's kind of getting in my way right now. So let's start off by talking about the quality of the supplies in this kit, which, as I already mentioned, this one is tricky for me. I do think that these are quality supplies. The yarn is soft and squishy, like I mentioned. The stuffing probably has its use. However, I don't think the yarn or the stuffing were appropriate to use for amigurumi, and this is what they chose to put in an amigurumi kit. I already mentioned all of this, but the yarn snagged whenever you crocheted with it. The stuffing was too stiff. I know I am known to pull my yarn a little too tight when I try to sew with it, but this, if you pull even really, really carefully, it still just falls completely apart when you try to sew with it. I got there in the end, but it was not easy sewing on, what did I say, all 9 of these tentacles. It was a struggle. And of course, I had to sew these little bubbles on the head as well, which I do think are very cute, but it was not fun to do. I just think it's so strange that they chose this yarn of all of the yarns for an amigurumi kit. I don't know if maybe they chose this because it's cheaper to produce and so they could be able to get a better profit from the kit by putting a cheaper yarn in there. I'm not really sure if that's the reason, but this is just not the appropriate yarn for amigurumi at all. I hate to give this a thumbs down, but I think I'm going to have to, because again, good quality supplies, but that doesn't really matter if they're not appropriate for the project. Now let's talk about the amount of supplies in this kit. This is an easy thumbs up for me. I still have plenty of yarn left over of both of the colors and a ton of this stuffing left over, which I don't really like the stuffing, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to end up doing with that. And I was going to try and crochet something else with this yarn in this video just to see if it was easier in looser stitches, which I assume that it is. But honestly, at this point, I'm just kind of done working with this yarn for today. So maybe you will see that in a future stash busting video. Now let's talk about the instructions, which I feel a little bit weird about this one as well, because the pattern itself is really well written. And I mean, the design, which we will get to in a minute, is so cute. But I just didn't really love the way that this was translated. As an experienced crocheter, I was able to get through it, but I could see somebody else who is maybe newer to crochet getting a little bit confused by some of the verbiage. Like they said cast on, which is a knitting term. We don't really use that in crochet. And like I mentioned, they said to block the thread, which I'm still a little bit confused by what that meant. So there was just a little bit more work they could have done to make sure that the translation made sense. So I'm gonna have to go with a sideways thumb on this one. I'm also giving this a sideways thumb because there weren't very many photos. I would have appreciated at least one more photo. I mean, there was one photo of this jellyfish and that was it. I would have appreciated some more like close-up photos so you could kind of see what was going on a little bit better. So yeah, sideways thumb it is. So now let's talk about the design, which is an instant thumbs up for me. I do think a jellyfish is a really good beginner-friendly pattern for a lot of people. I've made a lot of jellyfish in my time, but this one is a little bit unique. I like the shape of it. I like that right here, these what they call the small tentacles are chains that you slip stitch to the next stitch. It gives it a really cute design. I like that the head is made in a solid color while all of the tentacles are in a variegated yarn. I just think that is such a nice touch. I like the different sizes of the tentacles. I mean, this design is just so cute. And like I said, I already know that this designer makes amazing patterns. Now, most of the time when I like a design, I go and crochet it in my own yarn, but I am trying to limit the amount of time that I crochet per week because my hands have been going through it lately. So maybe you will see this in a future scrap busting video because I could see this design being a really good one for scrap busting, especially for those variegated yarns that you don't know what to do with. So you'll definitely see this again, just not today. So now we have to talk about the price of this kit, which I have to admit is a little bit tricky for me to talk about because this kit was $38 before tax. So after tax, this was close to $40, which I think is the most I've ever paid for a kit. And with it being a small business, I understand the price tag. However, paying $40, I would at least expect the supplies in the kit to match up with the type of project. And as I already mentioned, I just don't think that these are the appropriate supplies to be making amigurumi. At least in my opinion. I know maybe some other people might like this yarn for amigurumi, but I would venture to say that a lot of people wouldn't. This packaging does say that it is for easy to intermediate. And I could see somebody seeing, oh, this is an easy project, let me pick this up, and then getting really frustrated with this yarn and thinking that it's their fault when in the end it's really the yarn's fault. It's really just not the appropriate yarn for this project. I would spend $40 again in a heartbeat to support a small business if I felt like that $40 was giving me my money's worth. And in the end, I just don't know that I felt like this kit gave me my money's worth. I personally would not purchase this one again, so I'm gonna have to give it a thumbs down, which I feel a little bit sad about, but I just have to be honest. So who would I recommend this kit to? If you know that you like this type of unspun yarn, is that the right term for it? Roving yarn, unspun yarn. If you already know that you like that type of yarn, then you will like this. If you maybe already know that you might have to sew this on with another yarn, which is definitely what I would recommend, then again, go for it. And also you need to be experienced enough with patterns that you can get past some of the translation errors So I would definitely say intermediate and up. But, you know, if you like the look of this cutie and you are willing to take on the challenge of not the easiest yarn to work with in the whole wide world, then I would say go for it. I really hate being negative about a kit like this that is from a small business. I really hoped to be completely blown away by the quality and by just like the experience of this kit, but unfortunately I wasn't. I mean, in the end, I got an absolutely adorable and like soft, cuddly plushie. And I got to learn that the Italian word for jellyfish is Medusa. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. But in the end, I feel a little bit disappointed. And on this channel, I'm always just honest with my opinions on things. So that is, you know, just my opinion in the end. But if you like the look of this, I'm never going to dissuade you from purchasing a kit unless I feel like it's a scam or something, which I don't feel like this one is. I just wish they would have put a little bit more thought into the type of yarn that they were going to use for an amigurumi kit. So from me and Miss Medusa here, thank you so much for watching. If you've made it to this part of the video, I want to know, what were you working on as you watched today's video? If you did like today's video, be sure to hit the like button. You can subscribe, stick around, let me know what other kind of videos you want to see next. You can join my Patreon where I make a bonus video as well as an exclusive pattern once a month. And thank you again for watching. I'll see you next time.